I've fallen, and I can't get up.
Hello and welcome to the channel where we talk about all things card games and chill with friends. My name is Liam, and today I want to show you how to improve your decks that got restricted. Now, if you are new to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button, and if you enjoyed this video, please let me know by hitting that like button. Check out my socials, links down below in the description, and if you want to support the channel even further, please consider becoming a member and hitting that join button. But let's jump straight in. So with the release of Set 2 Quintet Spectrum, we had a restriction list where Kanata and Promise were hit quite significantly. Now, there are some people that still want to play the deck because, you know, for whatever reason, getting Set 2 cards might be quite difficult, and you're looking for ways to try and improve Promise and Kanata to a point where it's still playable in competitive tournaments. So I wanted to show you my takes on what I think you can do to basically make your Kanata and Promise playable in the competitive format with the restriction list. Now, if you weren't sure on what the restriction list was, first of all, Kanata got hit by two cards. First of all, its Collab Effect debut, and also its second bloom, both from set 1. And then Promise also got hit with the Iris first Idol bloom being restricted to 1 also. Now, this impacts the decks quite a lot. We knew that these two decks were very much the top performing in the format, and we were very aware that if Promise got hit exactly the same as it did when Japanese did its first restriction list, and Kanata got hit the same amount where the second bloom was not restricted, there still would have been a problem. So I'm glad that when they did the restriction list, they basically skipped it to the second restriction list, just ignoring the Tatang because we need to wait for the card to actually come out in English, I guess. But I do think these decks are both still quite viable, and with the current meta, can still cause quite an upset. Starting off with the Kanata deck. Now, it is still mainly a mono Kanata deck, but now that we have 6 spaces available in our deck, plus some cards from set 2, we have changed our ratios around just a little bit so that Kanata still keeps her vicious edge, as well as an ability to cycle that second bloom when needed. Starting off with the debuts, we run 10 copies of the Unlimited debut Kanata. We then run 1 copy of that restricted Collab Effect Kanata, and then we also run 2 copies of the Chloe Unlimited debut for that Cheer Ramp engine. Moving on to the first blooms, we've got 4 copies of the Kanata Idol, 4 copies of the rare Kanata Bloom Effect, and then also 3 copies of the Idol Chloe. So you have got a smaller Cheer Ramp engine. You don't need it too much. At the end of the day, the Kanata second bloom only requires 3 cheer, so you don't need to Cheer Ramp massively, but have it there so that when you eventually bring that second bloom Kanata back and you need to quickly get some cheer on it again, the Chloe allows you to do that pretty well. Second blooms, in terms of what we run here, so of course we just run the 1 copy of the Kanata because it is on that restriction list, bringing us to 25 holomems overall. Then we move on to our support cards. Starting with the limited, we run 4 copies of the Harasaki Norika, 3 copies of Mikorone 24 for our draw engine. We then run 2 copies of Amazing PC to increase our chances of actually seeing our second bloom Kanata as soon as possible. We still run 2 copies of So That Makes You My Enemy because you can cycle this around and use this quite well to basically ensure that your second Kanata is getting the opportunity to 1, get that 2 life down, but also not only that, it's a matter of if your opponent is building up, say if you're playing against Rainer and they are building up a Rainer in the back row waiting for your second bloom Kanata to come up, you can just go, okay, I'm going to bring what you were preparing up and just deal with it now. It's a great way of just disrupting your opponent's board state, and we do run it as 2 copies. We also run 2 copies of Retro PC. Now, some decks only run 1 copy with the updated list of Kanata. I like 2 because I liked to be able to recycle the Kanata second, but also have the opportunity, if I really wanted to recycle the debut Collab Effect. It's pretty rare that I will choose that. I will 9 times out of 10 go for the Kanata second bloom, but just having that extra Retro PC, especially in the late game, is really, really nice. Moving on to our non-limited, we run 4 copies of normal PC, again to increase our chances of seeing that Collab Effect Kanata. We run 2 copies of Explosion Magic. Now, we already know that Kanata, with the Axe and Upal combination, can on its first attacking turn deal 100 damage. With the Explosion Magic, that extends to 120, which basically deals with everything except Shion. as far as I know. I can't think of any other debuts that have more than 120 HP. So it is absolutely terrifying, and just having that, even that extra bit of ceiling where one, you're not always having to rely on Axe, or you're not always having to rely on Upal to hit that 100 HP like big barrier for most unlimited debuts that come out on the center stage turn 1. But we also then go, there are fireworks outside. For the rest of the deck, we go into 3 copies of Stone Axe and 3 copies of Upal. You would like to run more? Sure, that's fine. But I think with the rest of the deck, what it's trying to do, I think 3 and 3 are fine. But that is my list. So we got 25 Holomems with 13 debuts, 11 first and 1 second. And then we have 25 supports with 13 limited and 12 unlimited. And of course, we end up running 20 white cheers for this build. Moving on to the promise list. So we still run the Mume Oshi, and I have seen this new build running the Kanata Oshi instead, and that's a fair enough decision to make. Entirely up to you, I guess. But I still prefer the Mume personally, because the -50 can cause some massive issues if people don't know how to deal with it. And then just being able to grab the support, the event card that you need as and when you need it, is also really, really nice. We run 18 white cheers and 2 blue cheers because we are running a bit of a blue engine. And you'll see in here that there's a card that was normally taken out of most promise decks, but has actually been put back in. And that is purely because of the meta currently, where the second crony does a lot of work. Trust me, it actually ruined me during my second Halloween Cup I took part in, and my god, it was so annoying. But going through the list from the beginning, starting with our debuts, we've got 4 unlimited Mumes, 4 draw Mumes, we've also got 4 unlimited Iris, and we also run 2 copies of the Crony debut. Now, again, I've seen a lot of builds of this and people leaning more into the Iris engine, even though you have lost some of your first idle Iris. I personally felt that from testing Promise that you are wanting to lean more into Mume. It just seems more consistent. So I have gone, in terms of my first blooms, I've gone into 1 copy of the pseudo draw Mume, which I really love in this deck, and I wanted to run it 2, but honestly, space was a problem, so we have to stick with 1. We then of course run 4 copies of the Idol outfit Mume and 4 copies of the second bloom Mume. Moving on to the Iris line, we've got just the 1 copy of the Idol outfit due to the restriction list. We run then also 2 copies of the vanilla Daki art Iris, basically to ensure that we can get to our second blue Iris when we need to. We still run 2 copies of the Iris, at least from my build. I personally prefer 2 Iris rather than 3, but I do appreciate people that like to go higher than that. Then the Crony line, as I mentioned, we've got the debuts. We run 4 copies of the first cheer ramp, which is really, really good. And then we run 1 copy of the second bloom Crony, the Rewind. For those that don't know what it does, it's on collab. Choose one of your opponent's Holomem in their backstage and return it to debut. Yes, it also loses any damage that's on that card, but imagine you're playing against Rainer Marine and they have got a 2-3 stack Marine on their backstage. You just go, no thank you, you're back to debut, try again. It's so frustrating as a Rainer Marine player, and this is a card you really, really have to watch out for. So if you are playing Promise and you realize that you are against Rainer Marine or Rainer Yofi as well in some situations, knowing just to go, okay, I need to find my second bloom Crony as quickly as possible. So basically to get to your first bloom Mume, into your second bloom Mume, get that collab off and find your second bloom Crony as quickly as possible, because it will win you games. Trust me, it lost me mine. So that's our Holomems. We do run a very high Holomem count, as we usually do in Promise, 33 Holomems with 14 debuts, 12 first and 7 seconds. Moving into our supports, we run 13 limited and 4 non-limited. The limited, we run 4 copies of Nordica, 3 copies of Mikorone 24. We also still run 3 copies of Promise, the event. We also run 2 copies of So That Makes You My Enemy. We also run 1 copy of Retro PC. I like Retro PC to be able to cycle that Iris First Bloom as and when we need to, or recycle your Crony Second, which can win you games if you're able to recycle it. There are so many situations where that Retro PC could just do things. Now, I understand people don't run this card, and that's fine. I personally do. I really rate Retro PC as a card, as a 1 to 2 of in a lot of decks. So I'm running it as one of in my build at least. And then the non-limited, we just run 4 copies of the normal PC because you need to find the correct debut as and when you need to. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. But that is the Promise deck that I would run, at least with my playstyle. But those are the 2 decks that I would recommend if you are looking to rebuild your Promise and Kanata decks after they have been hit by the restriction list. What do you think? And if you have changed your deck following the restriction list, what changes did you make, and would you change compared to what I have done? Let me know in the comments below. But apart from that, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.